All right, section 3. So groundwater, is it the answer? I don't know, but maybe dams are. Let's find out in section 3. So large dams. We've talked about dams already once before, but a dam is just a structure that's built over a river to control the river's flow. And then behind it, of course, an artificial lake forms, and that's called a reservoir. And so there's many goals behind having a dam. It's useful in controlling floods, can generate electricity like we talked about last unit, can supply irrigation water, and of course have recreation. And so they are a major part of the river systems of the United States currently, but they also cause a major disruption to the hydrologic cycle and ecosystem cycles in the area. And so there's both advantages and disadvantages to them. So this is a breakdown of what it looks like, and of course, pretty straightforward idea. You know, you have a large dam over moving water. Behind that's your reservoir. From the reservoir, there's usually pipes that run down through into the river below. They're tunneled through huge generators that spin and produce electricity. And so that's the basic setup. And so here's a picture of one for you. Here is one over the Euphrates in Turkey. And so you can see in 1976 before it was built, and then 1999 after it was built through satellite imagery. Causes major shifts in the ecological setup of the region and alters the landscape quite a bit. So, example of a water supply, the Colorado River Basin, that is greatly affected by dams. So, the Colorado River system starts, of course, in Colorado. The first place it's dammed is way up by Boulder. That river system runs all the way through Colorado, out through Utah, through Arizona, through a little bit of right along the Nevada border, down through California and out into the Gulf of California in Mexico. On it, and so it accounts for about 1/12 of the whole continental United States from a drainage perspective. There's been 14 dams and reservoirs built along it. The green little crescents on the map illustrate locations of some of the major ones. And it's mainly supplied by snow and snowmelt up in the Rocky Mountains. This water system is set up and supplies both water and electricity for an amazing 25 million people. So it's it affects a large portion of the United States there and a large quantity of people in it. And it also provides tons of irrigation for crops. And of course, recreation like Lake Mead and things like that. So here's a picture of one of the dams that's on the Colorado River. Now, you can argue it's been quite overtapped in its years. So the Southwest, the region it runs through, is extremely dry. And so it's one of the driest places in the United States, of course, and the river itself has a modest flow for its size. So it doesn't have an extraordinary flow, just a decent one. And there's been legal arguments over it for a long time, and as a result, there have been a lot of legal agreements made that basically have accounted for more water for human use than actually the river can give you. So the goal or the legal setup is that we can pull more water out than actually is in the river, which you can see can possibly set up for some failure. And so the actual amount of water that gets in the Gulf of California down in Mexico at the very end is extremely low, and in many cases it never gets there. So depending on the year, there's no water that trickles out at the end. We've taken it all out before then. So that would be an issue, and you can see how that could have an enormous impact on the region. Another case study within dams is the Three Gorges Dam in China. It is the largest dam ever built. It was first started construction in 1994, finished up several years ago. It is huge. So it goes over the Yangtze River. It's 2 kilometers long. So it is an enormously long dam. And as a result, here's the Yangtze, and then behind it is the reservoir, and the reservoir is huge, 670 kilometers long. So we're talking hundreds of miles, equivalent to the distance between San Francisco and Los Angeles. So you can see how big of a dam this is and a reservoir this is. So what are the benefits to China building this huge thing? Well, they're producing 22,500 megawatts of power from it. That's equivalent to 22 coal power plants. enormous amount of energy, enough for 10 cities of Los Angeles. It's 180 million people, roughly, in the United States, and they use far less electricity in rural parts of China. So you can imagine how many people are being supplied with electricity there. It holds back floodwaters, so that's good, and it can actually allow cargo ships to now go up into that river system more efficiently. So it does a lot of good stuff along those lines. What's bad about it? Well, in order to build that bad boy, they had to move 1,350 cities out of the way so they didn't get flooded. They had to pick up and move 5.4 million people, had to build them new locations to live. So there was a huge shift in people's lifestyles. Of course, you have to move to a new place. And then once they flooded that region, they flooded it over, by the way, a seismic fault is where it's located. So there's a lot of potential disaster that could have happened as a result of that. And now we've backed up that river system, so now that water's sitting stagnant, and so there's more rotting plants and animal matter producing methane, and CO2 is worsening in the area as a result of it. So there's some benefits to it and there's some drawbacks to it, but the biggest one in history. So that's the end of this section. Bye-bye.